Thank you very much, John. Can you hear me? So there's a lovely element here. You know, I've been doing the world rankings for many years, and this is just a wonderful way of putting the color and the human stories and the personalities alongside rankings. We can look at data and see what the data tells us all day long, but actually universities are nothing without the people who lead them and the people who are carrying out the teaching, the research, and the administration across the institution. So this is a fantastic opportunity for us really to share case studies of best practice. Of course, there's a beautiful gala dinner award ceremony on tomorrow night. It's going to be a really lovely evening, but actually there's no point in doing the awards unless we can actually share our stories and we can learn from one another and share good practice. So this is a wonderful opportunity to do that. I want to keep this very informal. It's a good small group. I'm of course going to ask each of the shortlisted, the finalist candidates to talk about their stories, their institutions, but if we have time, I'd really much like to get a conversation going and we can have a really good opportunity to share good practice and learn from one another, because one thing that's wonderful is we have a really diverse range of institutions. I'll introduce the panel, and I'm absolutely thrilled to say, actually, as I look down the panel, I have some strong friends on this panel, universities I've personally been able to visit, personally been able to spend some time with, and I can personally testify to the dynamism, the passion, and the enthusiasm that we have on this panel. But first of all, to my left, we have Imran Sohail, the Director of Quality Enhancement at the Government College University of Lahore. Iram, sorry, I beg your pardon. I am going to massacre everybody's names, I'm sorry to say. Hossam Hamdy, the Chancellor of the Gulf Medical University here at in the UAE. Of course, our host university, Khalifa. We have Hesham Gomma, the Senior Director of Institutional Research and Planning. Han-Chieh Chao, the President of National Dong Hwa University in Taiwan. Bernard Tan, the Senior Vice-Provost of Undergraduate Education at the National University of Singapore. Raj Kumar, the Vice-Chancellor of OP Jindal Global University in India. Chunmiao Zheng, the Vice-Provost of Global Strategies at the Southern University of Science and Technology in China. And this is my hardest pronunciation, I'm sorry. Mohd Hamdi Abd Shukor, the Vice-Chancellor of the Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. So an incredible, diverse range of institutions, some very young, some much more mature, a wonderful range of experiences. But I think we'll start just by asking each panelist to just explain why they're here, what their application was, what is it that they do, introduce their institution. So if you could perhaps take just 2 or 3 minutes to explain your entry, your position, and then we'll go through the panel and we'll have an open conversation after that. So
should I start with you?
Yes, please do, go ahead.
Okay, I am Iram Sohail and I am representing Government College University, Lahore, Pakistan. It's one of the oldest institutions, as in college, but a young university. We were elevated to the status of university in 2002. And during my stay at the university, it's been 14 years now, I worked with 3 vice-chancellors. The previous regime brought everything to a status quo. So the new leadership, the incumbent leadership joined when it joined in 2015. There were, the university was in dire straits with respect to faculty members, with respect to senior positions, with respect to less number of PhDs. So what we did was the leadership and of course us who are his team, we formulated a roadmap with KRAs and KPIs so that we can see where we are lacking and where we have to do the work on war footing. So actually we did everything on the war footing, and we believe in good governance and quality assurance go side by side. So according to the Act, we have to have the meetings of statutory bodies for a number of time per year. So they were not happening, not even the selection board. So we did those selection boards, rapid selection boards, then the academic council meetings and the final approval from the competent authority, that is syndicate. So this was these have been very happening years from 2015 till to date. And during this tenure, the first international visibility came through Times Higher Education when we were ranked as 1001 plus. And it was quite overwhelming that we have this international visibility. Then from that time onward, we have been sending data for impact ranking in SDGs, and we are somewhere in 301, and in some we are 201 as well, but overall it's 301. Then we've been sending data for for this particular event, Award Asia, the Oscars Asia, it fascinated me a lot, and we sent entries for 3 categories. Leadership and Management Team of the Year. There was this Teaching and Learning category, and then Student Support. So it was very difficult to say everything in 500 words, what we have been doing. So I had to, condense and not to miss out the things which we have been struggling, endeavoring for. And I mean, during that period, we have actually excelled, although it was a nosedive decline, but now we are at least here. And things are stabilized, and it is because of the leadership. He gave us freedom, and we as his team worked day and night to bring, so that is the reason that why I am sitting here today. And unfortunately, Vice-Chancellor could not make it because the convocation is going on and the governor has given the time. So I am representing him, and that's how, we managed to bring the the sinking ship to a certain level.
Thank you. And I think it's the story of transformation. It's a story from, as you say, a university in dire straits, the change, the leadership required to change a negative situation.
That's true.
I think later we'll reflect on the actual characteristics of great leaders. I think that's something we should explore, what actual skills and qualities do leaders need to have. But perhaps for now, we'll hear from the rest of the panel. Hossam, Hamdy, would you like to tell us a bit about your institution and why you're here?
Thank you very much, Phil. Is it working? Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
We are a specialized medical university, which means we have a niche which we try to excel in this niche. We provide programs, around 25 programs in all aspects of health profession, education, medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, etc. The university is relatively young. I mean, it's only 22 years old. And it has been going through a major transformation, which I've had the pleasure of leading it over the last 2 years. So when we came as a team to take this university to another level, it was obvious that the most important thing is organizational culture change, because this is a key point in whatever we are doing. And it is a difficult part. But we were able, through the enthusiasm and support that we got it from inside and from outside at the national and international, to be able to move in this transformation. And people talk about innovation, and most of the innovation, they talk about the technology innovation. I talk more about system innovations and how systems need to work together and develop new systems which are not exactly the same system which are going. So this is what we've tried to entrench. And the first big things in system innovation is that we were able to create what is called an academic health system, where academia and healthcare are integrated together as two systems working together everywhere. And then this new culture, how it has embedded in the culture of the organization. We consider research is very important, so we started moving more toward research. And again, moving toward research, it needs a strategy, it needs money, it needs commitment. And that's why we started developing institutes like Institute of Precision Medicine, Institute of Population Health, and the Institution of Health Profession Education. And each institute of this institute complement the big picture of the university. So one is working in education and quality and developing faculty, not only in our institution, but from all over the world. We have colleagues from China, from India, from other places who are studying with us. And the research has been embedded, but the research has to be embedded all across the different units and different programs. So that's why research starts from year one when they come, and it plays a central role in the university. Although I am a surgeon and a professor of medical education and surgery, and I am from an older generation, but we started also moving and pushing the direction of how to use artificial intelligence, for example, in education. So we've created a very interesting software, which is called the virtual patient learning, because our main strategy of learning, which we have developed, is problem-based learning. So we don't have lectures, and we have, but not to that extent. But all the education is around problems in all programs, medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and so on. And we are using this now, virtual patient learning technology, in giving life to what is written on paper. So there are many issues, perhaps through the discussion it can come up, but I think the main issue of a leader here coming to transform an institution is looking how to develop or to change the culture and in the same time support the embedding of this new culture within this organization. And I think we have achieved to some extent this target. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a great line in the entry that I loved, that you said you were transforming the institution from an informative university to a transformative university, which I thought was really nice. But there's a lot of information there to discuss around building research capacity, using AI, expanding your global footprint. But for now, let's move on quickly, and then we'll open up. So, Hesham, you have a slightly unfair position here because you're showing your wonderful university to all these people. We're all here on the campus, but would you tell us your story of Khalifa University and why you're on the shortlist?
Okay, thank you, Phil. Sorry. First of all, why we're here, actually we're here to share with you our story of the merger process that we led of 3 higher education institutions in Abu Dhabi in the last 2 years. The story started on February 2017 when the government of Abu Dhabi decided to merge 3 higher education institutions, namely Petroleum Institute, Masdar Institute, and Khalifa University, under one new university called Khalifa University. The main goal of this merger and decision to build up a world-class university with all what it means in terms of its research capacity, excellence in teaching, attracting talent from all over the universe and the globe, and have impactful positive impact on our knowledge-based economy internationally and nationally as well. So the leadership of the university, when they took the lead for this exercise, they were challenged with what they have to do and how can they do this. It is the first time in the history of UAE to merge universities. Never happened before. The ambition is really large and big. So we had to go and search and study previous experiences in mergers of universities in other countries, in Europe, US. We found some failed, some succeeded. And as well, we didn't stop by this. We extended our study and review to mergers and acquisitions of enterprises and corporates. And we found as well really shocking results that sometimes 50 to 80% of the enterprises in mergers fail. So we decided now how to take this in a different fashion and more structured form. So we identified, based on our study, 7 key elements for success. Mainly is to have a unified vision, to select a management team that can lead the merge, to develop a comprehensive implementation plan and robust management system, to have a communication plan that is rational, and to have a resource management that can allocate budgets and changing activities, and we can go as well for risk management assessment and risk management. We structured our way forward. We started doing all what I mentioned, and we managed at the end, as you can see, recognizing and realizing the outputs of this. So the outputs happen in different areas. Accreditation of our programs, all are internationally accredited and nationally. Our research productivity has increased in the last few years. Our students' employment rate is the highest in the country. Others can be seen in the research fund that we have with industry. It is the largest in the country. And we scored in terms of higher education, we had the score 100 out of 100 in this. We, on the other hand, we managed to have very impactful input to the national strategic plan of higher education system. Our leadership was member of a team that led the development of the strategic plan at the Emirate level, and many of our projects were populated across other universities as well. Our ranking has improved. We are ranked now number 32 in Asia, and hope we can improve in the coming few days. We are the second in the Arab countries. We are the 15th in the emerging economies. So I think, and we strongly believe that we work in very structured way. We have a passion, we have a vision that we need to achieve, and we're working towards it. The very important thing that we are proud of, that while we are working in in leading the merger, we didn't forget our strategic vision. We were working parallelly in both directions. So while implementing the merger, we managed to develop our strategic plan, and we are moving towards it, and we have achieved a lot of what we planned for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a fascinating story. I love the idea that you actually studied failures as part of the process. I think that's something that comes up a lot, about learning from failure, from your own failure sometimes, but in this case, understanding why mergers sometimes don't work. It's a huge challenge to bring 3 distinct organizations with organizational cultures together, so we'll explore that as well. But perhaps I could move on now to Han-Chieh Chao, the president of National Dong Hwa University.
Good morning, everyone. Our university is located in the east coast of Taiwan. Okay. The very reason why I'm here, obviously, because I'm in the shortlist of the leadership and management. Dong Hwa is a quite young university. We are only 24 years old. We are going to celebrate our 25th birthday this November. Let me remind everyone our birthday that you will never forget it. It's November 11th, okay, 1111. And so, although we are young, but we merged a very old university, which is about 70 years old, an education university in year 2008. Therefore, Dong Hwa University is considered as a very comprehensive university in Taiwan with ample of campus area. Our campus is about 254 hectares. And our campus is always considered as the most beautiful campus in Taiwan. Besides, I guess, ever since I took over the office, I determined to implement III on our campus. What is the III? The first I should be the internationalization. Okay, determined to make sure our campus is foreigner friendly. Therefore, we established all kind of prayer rooms and all kind of transaction restroom. So therefore, our foreign students have been increased to the whole population to be 10% of our whole student population. And for those sister university, we have been increased ever since from 130 to now reaching 350. The second I should be informatization. I do because myself, I'm expert on computer science. So therefore, I try to make every corner to be not left behind, can be internet connected. And at the same time, we can gather in all kinds of big data. So I established a center called Cloud Big Data with Artificial Intelligence Enhancement Center to helping all colleges to collect all kinds of data. There are two examples for using this big data information. One is I'm successfully low down the accident rate on campus for more than 40% within 2 years. You know, Taiwan young kids always like riding a motorcycle in a very speedy way, and we think of every method trying to low down the accident rate, and we successfully from big data to detect which corner is more dangerous and put on a lot of alerting message in front of those young kids. The second example is trying to reduce our trash amount because we successfully bring up an app to our faculty member and student body, showing that where they can bring their trash to the certain place to throw their trash into the garbage bin. Therefore, I have successfully reduced the trash amount for even more than 500 kilo per day. Okay, so that's a really good example why I'm trying to informatization. The last one should be innovation, because nowadays Taiwan is facing a very critical situation. We have almost the lowest birth rate in the world. Therefore, most of our universities should be out of job very soon. And we have to revise our curriculum. We have to change our idea of how to teach students from what professor can teach into what students want to learn. And hopefully, after III, we have successfully enforced those III methods. Our students, after graduation, they can face the challenge of the society and can successfully get their future in a very smooth way. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the things the judges really liked about your entry was the emphasis on using data to inform your strategy. It's obviously something close to Times Higher's heart. We want to provide and share as much data as possible. And I think it's important to look at informing decisions using as much data as possible. So again, another talking point we can perhaps look at when we open up, but also the focus on sustainability, lots of emphasis on ensuring the campus is sustainable. But I'll move now to you, Bernard Tan from the National University of Singapore.
Good morning, everybody. Can I have a show of hands? How many of you have been to Singapore? So for the rest, please come and visit us in Singapore. And when you are in Singapore, please come and visit my university. You are very welcome to visit us. Now, as far as we are concerned at the National University of Singapore, the most important role of a leadership is to provide direction for the entire organization. And in order to effectively provide direction, we need to look ahead about what the university ought to be. And what the university ought to be in the future is not necessarily the same as what the university has been in the last 100 years. So this is something that is very clear to all of us. And as a management team, as a leadership team, when we try to envision what a university ought to be years down the road, the one thing that became very clear to us is that in the days ahead, a university will not only be just an institute of higher learning, but it will also be a very important economic center. right? A center that drives important, valuable, useful economic activities for the society and the country in which we are embedded. So it is with this motivation that we start to engineer all the kinds of things that we do. So in case you read from the press that we are doing so many different things and you have no idea how all these things are held together, basically it's held together by our belief that the University of the Future is an economic center. So as an economic center, we think it is very important that we not only find good jobs, good placement for our graduates, but we sustain them throughout their lifetime for a good career. I mean, these days, industries are changing. So much has been said and written about the fourth industrial revolution, and there's a real danger that graduates do become displaced, either unemployed or underemployed midway through their career. And sometimes this has nothing to do with them, not their fault, but that the industry simply changes, goes downhill, and the graduates need to adapt. So as a university, we decided that we are not just going to be training young people, we are going to be providing a platform whereby all our graduates can come back and upskill and reskill anytime along their lifetime. And in this regard, we have allowed our graduates, created a scheme to allow our graduates to come back to get a second degree in a discipline. So if you are working in a sunset industry and you see some other sunrise industry that you want to go into, we provide you with the platform for training to enable you to do that. And also we think that even for graduates who are on a current job, because many fields are moving very quickly, it's important for us to sustain them on the job. So for example, the computing graduates of 10 to 15 years ago would have very little knowledge about Internet of Things, information security, analytics, cloud computing, and what have you not. And why should they then not become unemployed? They should, right? So as a university, we are opening up all our courses, minor specializations in this area for our alumni to come back and upskill and reskill so that they can keep their jobs and continue to progress on their career. In this way, this is one of the ways that we generate economic activity. Now, the second way that we are doing so is to encourage entrepreneurship. Since 2012, we have gone to all the different entrepreneurial hubs in the world to set up shop. Basically, partner with universities overseas, like Stanford and all that, and send our students to all these entrepreneurial hubs for them to be trained for a year in these universities and do their internship in the startup companies. When they come back to Singapore, we put them together in a hostel that we call Enterprise House so that they can interact and form partnerships, start businesses. And we create an entire ecosystem that includes incubators, funding support, and all kinds of advisement and all that to allow students to start businesses. As a university, we believe that we cannot always be training employees for organizations. We have to be training some of these bosses at some point in time. And when you train enough of bosses, like all the famous Ivy League universities do, we become more prominent internationally, more well-known. And this is, and in the last 17, 18 years, we have trained 2,000 to 3,000 such students, and they have founded something like 370 companies. Now, the third thing we decide to do in this direction is the way we do our research. We decided that rather than chasing publications, even quality publications, we're going to put all that aside and focus on addressing problems that are important to the country. As we all know, Singapore is a small little place. We don't have water. So we are very intensive in conducting research about creating water, reusing used water, desalination, and so on and so forth. Singapore is a small country that has no energy. So we are very active at creating, at pursuing research that allows us to tap alternative sources of energy. We have put up a building that is net zero energy, which means it is connected to the grid, but it doesn't consume energy from the grid. And we are building a new one that is net positive energy. So in time to come, rather than spending millions of dollars on utilities, if our research work out well, we are going to be selling millions of dollars of power to the utility grid, right? And Singapore is a small place that has no food. So what we are doing now and in the days ahead is to create a very big research team and effort in the area of high-tech farming, right? Experiences from different parts of the world, for example, Netherlands tells us that you can actually use a very small place to generate a lot of food. right? So we are learning from all these experiences and trying to do something different. And I have to be very honest with you that it's not very easy to do these things because, like it or not, these things takes years to happen. And ranking agencies worldwide, university ranking agencies, including THE, sometimes rank us on our publications, on our citations. And when we do this, in fact, our citations, our publications do take a hit. But as a management team, we decided that it is more important for us to do something that is really important to the society and the country in which we are embedded. Even if these things cause us a few ranking places in the short term, we are fine with this. Because if we do something useful, eventually in the longer term, all these things will get published and all these things will get cited. All these things will have a big impact. And so we are doing this with a lot of boldness and courage. If there's any other suggestions you think we can do better, please feel free to let me know. I must tell you that we, as a management team, we decided that, we are doing this by taking a very big risk. We sometimes do not clearly know what we are doing. We have not arrived, and we are here to learn from all your experiences because I'm sure there's many good things that are happening in your institutions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that's you heard it here first, guys, that, and I shouldn't really repeat this, but one of the world's leading universities saying, don't worry too much about the ranking. Do what's right for you. Maybe the rankings will take a short-term hit, but the success will follow. I think that's a very genuinely solid and strong message to take away, that actually do what's right for the university mission. And I love the combination at NUS that you are clearly a globally renowned university, but you're very, very wedded to the local community and the local national economic situation. It's a wonderful balancing act, actually, and an important balance to achieve. But I will move swiftly on. Youth is a theme of this panel, I think. There's quite a lot of young universities here, but Raj, let's hear your story. It's one of the most youthful universities in the world, I think.
All right. Well, I come from a country which has a very old civilization. I will draw you back to nearly 2,000 years ago when Nalanda University, Takshashila University were established. And this was long before Bologna and Oxford and Cambridge. So in some ways, the inspiration to establish OP Jindal Global University was to retrace the civilizational heritage of the Indian subcontinent and to look at how universities could be absolutely transformative. I had the privilege to study at Oxford University as a Rhodes Scholar exactly 20 years ago. And that's when I dreamt about the idea of building a university in India. The next 10 years, I had the privilege to study at Harvard and then work in New York and teach in Japan and for many years in Hong Kong, and pretty much drew inspiration from universities around the world. And the vision was to build a private, not-for-profit, philanthropic university in India, which in many ways expected to challenge the status quo of Indian higher education and to build a transformative institution. We had the privilege to meet with an Indian benefactor named Naveen Jindal and essentially persuaded him to do three things. One, to make a substantial financial commitment. Second, to do it in a not-for-profit manner. And third, to let me have the academic freedom, autonomy, and independence to build a world-class university in India. By late 2007, Mr. Jindal agreed to all of that, and he invited me to move to India in early 2008. From 2008 onwards, we constituted an excellent team, some of whom are here, including my friend and colleague, Dr. Sani. All of us brought together energy and dynamism to build, in many ways, India's first global university. The vision was very clear. We ought to be global because we believe in the idea of engagement with the world. There are few features that began the journey. First was that we wanted to engage with the world at large. So internationalization became a central thematic focus of the university. We began to attract some of the brightest minds from around the world. We established collaborations with universities around the world. In fact, global is our middle name, and we take that seriously. And that led to establishment of international collaborations with universities around the world, which impacted life of students and contributed to faculty engagement and research. The second important feature of our university was that we are an entirely social sciences and humanities university. In fact, when our NUS friend suggested about the idea of university being an economic center, we believe that universities are as social and human development centers. The idea of universities contributing to the knowledge creation, but also focusing on liberal arts, humanities, and social sciences was a central theme. In many ways, when I look at the THE sort of selection, we are probably the only non-STEM, non-medicine university in this list. And that's a very unique feature in a country like India, where every third individual aspires to become an engineer. And so the idea of building a purely humanities and social sciences was another feature. The third characteristic of the university was a strong commitment to research. We maintain a 1:10 faculty-student ratio, which is a luxury in a country like India, and that has enabled the focus of our university to create knowledge, but also contribute to research and publications. The 55+ research centers and the 3 research and capacity building institutes, all of which has driven the agenda of research in a very significant manner. The fourth characteristic of our university is balancing research with experiential learning. I think it is one of the remarkable things about universities that when universities tend to focus far too much on teaching and research, they end up losing their connectedness to society at large. Experiential learning and social impact, including contribution through clinical programs at the social side, but also social innovation, entrepreneurship, and engaging with the community at large are some of the unique features of the university from day one. The last and very important part of what we're trying to do is that we would like to, in many ways, be a transformative institution. Universities ought to be a create substantive impact in society, and our transformation is driven by our ability to attract the best minds from around the world and from India. 17% of our full-time faculty members are non-Indian nationals recruited from over 32 different countries and regions in the world. Not only we are international, but also our international diversity is quite extraordinary. The partnerships that we have built around the world has led to our students and faculty in impacting their own lives. So our story of the last 10 years is one of inspiration from around the world. We have been deeply inspired by some of the older institutions in India, but also a range of universities across the West, the East, and indeed Latin America and Middle East, and also some institutions in this part of the world. I want to end by saying that the next decade has posed enormous opportunities for us in India and beyond. India, as you know, is a country of young population. 850 million people in India are less than 35 years of age. Indian life expectancy has increased to approximately 70 years. When most parts of the Western world and good part of the Eastern world will become older, India will be younger. This also means that institutions in India, universities in India, have a larger role to play because many students, young people who are right now in universities are going to assume a leadership role for the future. And that is why the leadership and management vision of our university has focused on investing in education for producing transformative leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. I do love the story at Jindal around sort of mold breaking. You know, you're taking some great historical, cultural references, but actually you've had to defy a lot of the policy environment in India. You know, being international in an environment where actually it's very hard to be international, where lots of policies are working against it. Fascinating story. Again, looking forward to opening it up to debate. But let's move straight on now to Chunmiao Zheng, another story of youth from SUSTech, the Southern University of Science and Technology.
Good morning. So we all agree that it's difficult to build a world-class university from scratch, like SUSTech is doing. It's really require leadership, a management team with a great vision and ability to make it happen. Under the current leadership and management team of SUSTech, we were able to accomplish quite a bit very quickly. Let me share with you some of the highlights. First, attracting global talent to the university. Among about nearly 400 tenure-line faculty members at SUSTech now, 90% have either worked or studied internationally, with 60% in top world top 100 universities. So a very high percentage. And SUSTech has become a role model in China for global faculty recruitment. Also, secondly, recruiting best student to our university, competing with the best university in China, and without a reputation, such a new university, we were able to attract best and brightest student to SUSTech. And SUSTech, about 7 years ago, when we were started, came up a creative model for admission called 631. So that is the admission assessment is based on like 60% on national entrance exam, 30% on self-administered interview and test by SUSTech, and 10% on high school performance. This was so different from everybody else at that time. And now everybody is copying it. So that's right now, new student admitted to SUSTech ranked top 20 of all Chinese universities. So it's quite a remarkable achievement. And I have heard quite a bit over the panelists on about internationalization. That's also the key hallmark of SUSTech. And we really focus on building a strong international partnership. Actually, SUSTech hosted THE's first mainland China event last year, Asian Summit in Shenzhen. I wonder how many of you were there last year. But also, like SUSTech and MIT have established a joint research center with a strong education and research component. This is also the first in China, actually. And right now, SUSTech is making major advancement in teaming up with many prominent partners, such as HEC Paris, and King's College in London, and University of Queensland in Australia, and some others, such as the Milan Technical. And on the education side, SUSTech has over 20 joint PhD programs with overseas universities, and even more undergraduate exchange programs. So it's very international. And then SUSTech has been able to achieving some top quality in research output. And we are consistently ranked at the top university in China in terms of average research citation impact. Okay. The funding per faculty member at the SUSTech also ranked the very top in China, consistently top 3. And this kind of high quality research output has been fueled by a top-notch faculty and also the significant investment in research infrastructure. I just give you one example. We opened a cryo-electronic microscopy center last year with a 400 million RMB investment. And very quickly, it became one of the top 3 in the world, top 3 such center. And next, it's serving the industry and community. And our university motto is research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. This is especially, so we really a lot of trying to work with the industry and help drive the economic engine. This is particularly important for where we are located, in Shenzhen, which is considered the Silicon Valley of China. So, for example, university has a policy that every faculty member can work up to one day a week consulting and working in the companies. This is, I think, also the first time official policy in Chinese universities. And the income from intellectual properties is split 70-30 between the faculty members, 70 and 30% for universities. So even though we are only 7 years old, very young, but we have achieved high ranking. And in actually last year in THE World University rankings 2019, so we were included for the first time. and ranked as number 8 for mainland China universities. So that's a very good outcome. And other ranking services also ranked us highly. It's also worth mentioning that Lecture Index, which is a collection of top 82 academic journals, put us as the first globally for all, first among the top 30 academic institutions worldwide under 30 years old. So we are really publishing, turning out some great impactful research result. So all this achievement obviously started with from the top, from strong leadership. For SUSTech, that's our president, Shi Cheng, and the senior management. We are very proud, very grateful to HEC for shortlisted us to be here. And I'm very happy that we have the opportunity to share my some experience, some of our highlight. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think there was a line in your application that I was really struck by. It talked about the partnership with MIT, and it said that the partnership required you to navigate challenging geopolitical waters. And I do think that's another sign of leadership, actually, that universities, when they seek international partnerships, they have to transcend geopolitics. They have to transcend short-term challenges presented by politicians. And I think that's an important role universities have, is to actually reach out and collaborate outside the constraints of whatever Donald Trump thinks should be going on and whatever various populist politicians believe.
I'm actually going there again just after this, just to continue the work together under this bumpy climate change.
Sure.
Climate.
And let's move on to you, Mohd Hamdi, for your brief remarks, and then I'll open it up to the audience for some conversation.
Thanks, Phil. Very good morning to all. My name is Hamdy. I'm the Vice-Chancellor of the Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, and in English it's translated as the National University of Malaysia. It is one of the 5 research universities in Malaysia, and it's going to be celebrating its 50th anniversary next year. This university is quite a big size in terms of student number. We have 29,000 students, where 18,000 are the undergraduates and 11,000 postgraduates. We have close to 3,000 international students. And the university is in the vicinity of Kuala Lumpur. Being a young vice-chancellor, I've resumed this position on the 1st of January. This university is a very highly traditional university which has long standing in the country. It has been mottoed to inspire the future and also nurture possibilities. And the University of Kebangsaan Malaysia is forming its strategy into a very highly structured components, where things are being divided into 6 critical components, where each of them are segments as the key research, key results areas. Number 1 is students. UKM wants to have students with soul, not only cognitive ability, but also students with emotions and also emotionally attached with the country and also the people. Secondly, the KRA is about research, of course, research which are relevant and also referred and respected. Number 3 is networking. UKM particularly has got very, very strong foundation with the people surrounding the university and also the industry. Number 4 is talent. We put a lot of emphasis in building talents. Number 5 is infrastructure, which is extremely important for universities to be recognized as the world-renowned university. And number 6 is the finance, which is now very important because of the financial issues in the country, where the government is constantly cutting the funding to universities. So these 6 key results areas are translated into 18 initiatives, where each one of them has got 3 initiatives. And how UKM has done it is that it is been cascading down even from the board member, from the board level, into the Senate, into the top management, the deans, the institute, and eventually the head of departments. So these 6 KRAs and 18 initiatives are trickled down in that manner. And in fact, it's been It's been written in book form where everyone will have, and it is, making sure that each one of the member in the university, which we have 9,000, they have to understand and also implement the initiative. So 6 plus 18 initiatives are cascaded down and monitored every quarterly, where we want to make sure that the impact of all these strategic plans are trickled down until the very last person in the system. And UKM, being the national university, aspire to make sure that the university is very relevant in terms of giving impact in whatever they do. And in doing all these activities, what we really take care is, again, the quality. And we embrace quality very dearly. We believe that there will be no other match to quality. And we are a firm believer of quality in all these KRA plus the 18 initiatives that we have taken. So, Phil, thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much indeed. So I think you can see from that we have a really outstandingly diverse and rich range of finalists. And I think, I know it's a cliche, but I think it's really important for us to say at Times Higher Education that just to get to this point, these are all winning entries in the sense that they've all gone through a very long process of shortlisting, and there was a very large number of entries. So it's really a testament to the teams here that they've all reached this stage. I have lots of questions, but actually I think because it's all about sharing, I'd love to open up straight away. So if anyone has any questions, please do raise a hand and get involved. Do we have any mics in the room? Yes, there's a colleague at the front.
Good morning. My name is Sanjeev Sani, and I'm from OP Jindal Global University, India. Since this session is on a leadership and management team, and I would like to request all of you, if you can answer, if your university has some sort of a behavioral competencies mapping or assessment system. I know when you hire a vice-chancellor, the research publications and experience speaks itself. But when few of you have talked about KRI and KPIs, I want to know that when you hire the management team, the administrative people, do you have a system how you will map or assess the behavioral competencies? Because this is pretty common in most of the organizations, even in United Nations, or you talk about the Fortune 500 companies, everywhere. I'm not talking about the faculty, but I'm talking about the administrative staff, the senior management team, how those people are being selected and how they can, because most of the people are coming from the industry, and how they can work in the university and how you measure their success. Thank you.
Anyone like to take that one on? Sorry, would you like to go first?
No, okay, go ahead,
Iram,
please.
and then we'll...
In Malaysia, we have an agency under the Ministry of Education, which is called ACAP, which is the leadership agency. And we are quite blessed that this agency has done tremendously well in really profiling the people. And what they have done, basically, is through, with the help of a third-party consultant firm, they actually, first and foremost, identify talent in the country. And then they go through the process of interviewing them, one whole day with the 360 plus all the exam before coming to the, test before coming to the interview. So all these are then mapped into the competency profile. And in selecting vice-chancellors and deputy vice-chancellor particularly, we have to refer to this profile. And we have, at the moment, close to 500 profiles of people that has talent to be leaders of the university, public university particularly. And from this, we can actually zoom through. So universities have got their own list and then map to the existing, what the government have done, which is a 500 profile that they have in the database. And we can actually trace what are the competency required for our own university based on the profile that they have. So this is really helping the public university to identify talent within the people in the country.
Bernard, did you want to say something?
I think you have asked a very important question, right? Now, it is extremely difficult to select very competent university leaders. Now, at the National University of Singapore, I have won both the top research award and a top educator award, but that does not suggest that I will be a good administrator. And that will certainly not suggest that I'm a forward-looking person. And as a university moves forward, it cannot always be looking at its history, because there will be so many things that we want to do in the future that we have never done before. So, in fact, most important thing is to pick people who have the courage and the conviction to move forward, and we move forward with trepidation, right? And I think our former president has been asked this question several times by very important government and university leaders. How do you pick a university leadership team that can ensure success for the university? And his answer is very interesting. Among your 2,000 over professors, find 10 who are high in achievement, motivation, and low in ego, put them on all the important university leadership positions, and half the job is done. Yeah, so I think that's the advice I have for everybody, because when people are high in achievement, motivation, low in ego, they will have enough humility to accept the fact that there are many shortcomings, many areas of improvement, and even when you move forward, without knowing whether you are right or not, you tend to be very sensitive to the signals that are coming your way and steering the organization, and very bold to admit that when we make a mistake, we make a mistake. Right? Life goes on.
I'm very interested in the low in ego element here, because you think a lot of you leaders would be high in ego. Iram, you wanted to say something?
No, let the
Would you like to go first, Hossam?
Well, it's a very important question, and it's good that to give us time to reflect before answering this question. I think there are two issues or 3 points. The first point is about the difference between leadership and managers or administrators. And I think there is, although they are the two faces of the same coin, in a way you keep moving between the two, but manager usually they tend to create a sort of stability, where leaders may be instability in a positive sense and moving people. The second point about the word measurement, and we have to understand that we cannot measure everything. We just measure what we are able to measure. And that's why my strong belief, I never use quantitative measurements in anything related to human behaviors in a way. And that's why we have to understand more the qualitative approaches in management. The last point I want to add, there is a difference between selecting or identifying someone from the institution to become a leader or the next successor. So you have time that he has proved himself, and from how he works within this institution, and people can judge on him. Because in judging behavior of human beings, it needs time to observe them in the real life situation, how they are doing. So it's an assumption that if you're bringing someone de novo, it has its risk, but the point, I cannot measure it through a questionnaire and the Likert scale and whatever these things. Thank you.
It's quite interesting. Times Higher Education was bought recently, and all the leadership team had to go through what I guess is a psychometric testing process. But I think that was less about identifying our skills and more about identifying whether we were a risk to the new owners or not. We all passed eventually. Sorry, Hesham?
Yes, the culture here in Abu Dhabi and in our university is actually to recruit and look for visionary leadership and leaders. Somebody who can dream of the undreamable and achieve the unachievable. And somebody who has track record of creating a path, not following a path. So this is actually, these are the main criteria that I think a leader of a university that needs to compete internationally should be. From the angle of performance management, I agree and disagree with Dr. Hossam. Qualitative is important, but as well as quantitative. I think we need always to have a hybrid model that measures both and have track the achievement previously and after. Thank you.
Raj, I'd like to take a similar line of questioning too, but just to move it slightly. One of the debates that rages a lot in higher education these days is whether you actually need to be a distinguished academic to lead an academic institution. Now, obviously, you have a very distinguished history, but the range of skills required now, go way beyond being great at your discipline, communications, public relations, being visionary, in many ways, there's financial skills, entrepreneurial flair. You're almost more of an executive now. Do you think it is still essential that great university leaders must have their own previously strong academic track record to understand what it means to run a university, or are the skill sets changing?
I strongly believe that universities are extremely complex organizations, and despite all of its complexities, the fundamental thing that distinguishes a university is its ability to provide education and to create knowledge and in many ways seek inspiration. And I believe very strongly that university leadership ought to be based upon their ability to contribute to that thinking, and academics are well suited to do it. But I also will say that beyond that, you need to look at other attributes. Because of the complexity of the stakeholdership in a university, for example, we are looking at students and faculty and staff, but we are also looking at parents and regulators and partners and corporations and benefactors and a whole range of multi-stakeholder situation. And that's why it's important for leaders who can navigate that, and a purely an inspiring teacher and an outstanding researcher is not enough. While those are minimal requirements, you need to look at beyond those abilities who can actually provide what is called the transformative leadership. But nevertheless, it's also very important that we should not ever make the mistake that somehow corporations and companies which has leadership, they can assume a leadership role in a university, because many things that university do cannot be measured and but count a lot. So measuring and counting are important things, but it's important also to recognize, and the clarion call which Michael Sandel gave in his book, What Money Can't Buy, the moral limits of markets, we need to recognize that in universities more than any other organization.
Chunmiao, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I think to answer your question, whether a university leader to be a distinguished scholar, I think it's really depend on the mission of the university. Taking the SUSTech as example, SUSTech from day one wanted to be a world-class research university. So I think it's important to have a president is a distinguished scholar, which is what we have in President Shi Chang. He was the chair professor and department head at Johns Hopkins University before he came back to Peking University and then took over as president of the SUSTech. So I think that's the answer. So in that SUSTech case, it's yes, I think it's very important to have a visionary, distinguished scholar. But at the same time, I agree with you that being a distinguished researcher, a scholar, is not enough. As a chief executive of a university, modern university, it's really important to have people skills. So President Chen, I observed from a close distance, able to work with all kinds of people. So people skill and a communicator, motivator is really, really very, very important at the university president. Also, in particular in Chinese case, now someone who is very familiar with Western system, like he spent more than 20 years in the United States, and then very intimately familiar with the Chinese system. I think it's very critical to the success of SUSTech. So the both system, not just you spend a couple of years Western and then claim yourself know everything, but really you're deeply involved in administration and research teaching in both systems. And finally, the chief executive also has to raise funding, particularly like SUSTech is fully funded by Shenzhen government. So he certainly need to talk with city mayors and province, Guangdong governors, things like that, really to maintain, sustain steady support for rising, for startup university.
Sure. And Bernard, you wanted to say?
Yes. Now, at the National University of Singapore, I look after the education portfolio. And to be very honest with all of you, many colleagues candidly told me that they actually checked my teaching track record, right? My teaching feedback, peer reviews, what students say about me before they decide how much they want to listen to me. So if I'm not a good educator and I go around telling colleagues to do good teaching, nobody listens. If I'm not a good researcher and I go around telling colleagues to do good research, nobody listens, right? Having said this, I would think that, when we are putting up people for university leadership position, it is good, it is important that the person be good in teaching, good in research, but not necessarily stellar. Someone who is good in teaching, good in research, but who have other leadership qualities, soft skills, people management skills, ability to look ahead and bring the people with you. This would be more important than a star researcher or a star educator who lacks all these qualities. Yeah.
Thanks. Do you want to add anything?
Yes, just a quick remarks. Personally, I consider that as a president of the university, his research should be merely above average will be quite enough. I guess the very important thing is he should be able to employ who is capable to serve as a leader for a specific position. For example, in my area, if I can recruit an IEEE fellow to serve as a director of R&D, he can do much better than me because I have to cover every corner, other kind of teasy things. So go back to the first question is Taiwan has their own unique system that every important manager position on campus should be a part-time job of the professor on campus. Okay, so they should be served as a part-time of a faculty member. So for the president, of course, I can acquire some professor from other campus to come to this campus to do the job for me. However, it will certainly hurt the morale. Therefore, I strongly believe there is a so-called ear theory. So I will definitely acquire only one or two specific professors from other universities come to our campus to serve for some certain position. And then they will bring up the competition between each faculty member. And later on, the whole management will get improved very much.
Thank you. Happy to open it up some more if there's a microphone. Any of the volunteers? Okay, we'll take this one and then we'll go to the front. Thanks.
Okay, my name is Sharif Khalifa. I'm the Dean of the College of Pharmacy at Gulf Medical University. I'd like to hear your comments about 2 points since you are distinguished leaders in this panel. There's a saying that if you're in a leadership position and you're going to be fired, you're probably going to be fired for one of two reasons. Either that you've done a terrible job or that you've done an outstanding job. So if you've really done an outstanding job and you've finished it and it's well done, then probably you're going to relax and not do anything more after that. So maybe we should hire someone else to take over. So that's the first point. The second point, when institutions like accreditation agencies come and visit an institution, and they find a great leader in a certain position, they're thinking, okay, if this person leaves, what happens? Because it's always good to have a succession plan or a successor or someone who can cover in case that person is not available anymore. At the same time, we say always that a good leader will produce leaders so that they can go on and take over. At the same time, if I'm in a leadership position in an institution and I work hard to produce more leaders, then I'm risking my own position. So there's an interesting balance here, and I'd like to hear your comments on both of these points. Thank you.
Excellent set of questions. Anyone like to tackle those? Raj,
So very old universities, frankly, has so little impact on that. So for example, I think if you pick up universities over 100 years old, Harvard president or Oxford vice-chancellor individually coming and going may not have much of an impact within that institution because they are so institutionalized. Things don't change quickly, dramatically. And I've always jokingly said that you can identify the most incompetent and inefficient vice-chancellor around the world and then put him or her as Oxford vice-chancellor, the chances of he or she doing significantly bad is less. But newer institutions, and that's why the less than 50 institutions, it's significantly important to have dynamic leaders because it's not just about institutional capacity, but it's about motivating and inspiring and galvanizing intellectual consciousness surrounding the community of scholars and students to advance that thinking. And that's where a transition from an entrepreneurial university to an institutionally sort of driven transition is a very difficult thing to do. I mean, we are actually, we are a 10-year-old university. This year, we are completing our 10th anniversary, and we are looking at the future. And one of the most difficult tasks that we have before us is that when we look at this transition, what are the key institutional leadership capacities that we are creating so that the future is stronger for us, and we are also not compromising on our dynamic entrepreneurial initiative. What you just said is very important. Universities, when they achieve success and have reached a particular milestone, both leaders and institutions can become sort of settled and feel that there's not much to do immediately. But that's why the entrepreneurial element is so key for institutions which are, let's say, less than 100 years old.
You've just inspired me to look up a quote, actually, that I remembered or misremembered from Bismarck. The statesman's task is to hear God's footsteps marching through history and try and catch onto his coattails as he marches past. It does seem as if some university leaders are literally just stewards looking after centuries of history and actually can't do much harm, whereas I think a lot of the leaders on this panel are from younger institutions or institutions going through transformation. So there is a real issue about the style of leadership. Please, Bernard, would you like to?
Now, regarding leadership succession, right? As a matter of fact, I have given my university board several names of people who can do my job if I fail to wake up tomorrow morning. And all of us in senior management at my university, we do the same thing, right? So we do have a planned process in case something happens to somebody. And even if we don't die, sometimes we get poached, right? Well, two of the several universities in Singapore, the presidents were from my university and they were poached. Now, regarding this thing about stagnation, I personally believe that people who are truly forward-looking don't stagnate because they believe with all their heart that they never arrive, right? There's always something better out there to do. So, I mean, apart from being looking after the education portfolio, at my university, I'm also the Shaw Professor for Information Systems and Analytics. So as a doctoral student, I was trained on all the statistical model, structural equation models, and I became very good at doing all this kind of analytics. Then when econometric model became prominent and emerged, I found that, oh, this is such a good thing that can allow me to do so many things that I previously cannot. So I started doing all these things. When social network models evolve and allows me to do even more things, I start learning and doing all these things. And more recently, when machine learning models evolve and allow me to do more things than I could have ever done in the past, I started embracing these things, doing all these things as a cause of my work. Right? So I would think that when we pick the right kind of leaders who are there running the organization, we have a much lesser risk of people going to obsolescence because these people believe with all their heart that they never arrive. There's always something more important for them to learn, for them to do in the days ahead. And even today, after I embrace machine learning models and I do that for my research, I'm still looking forward to what is coming next. And there are many people like me in many universities worldwide. Yeah.
So we have only about 10 more minutes. There's a question here, and then we'll go to the lady in the yellow. Let's take the two questions at once to make sure we get them answered.
I'm Dr. Dilip. I am from Gulf Medical University. I want to know that how much transparent and diplomat the leadership role is in the university. it is a highly complex, as one of the complex system. So how transparent and how diplomat the leaders should be to sustain the university into next level. And the innovation is important, other things are important, and how they manage the risk of the university. You know that when you run a very complex system, a lot of risk will come. So how the leaders will be, they educate, they experience, they regulate, they control the risk, so that the university can establish itself, because if the university fails, the society fails. So that is my question.
Thank you. And can we put the mic straight down to the back, and then we'll have 2 questions. You can have a think about those.
My name is Gail Tripp, and I'm from the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. I want to thank you all. I've learnt a lot sitting here this morning, but my question is a challenge. We have a lot of men sitting on stage. What are we going to do so that in future there will be women answering these questions for us? So I'm a Vice President of University Community Services, but I'm also heavily involved in diversity, so I feel I have to put that question to you all.
Very good challenge, and I hope next year's panel will be more diverse. But who wants to tackle the gender equality challenge? Raj, your university is quite well balanced, isn't it? Do you want to talk about how you...
So I think it's a very important question. So we have done a number of things. To begin with, I must say that 50% of our faculty members are women. And that's quite extraordinary in a country like India, but also it's quite extraordinary anywhere in the world. It's a very conscious effort. It's not, you know, one of the, again, on a lighter vein, I will say, in Indian judiciary, there's always a challenge with regard to women. It's much lesser. So once I was talking to a bunch of judges, and I said that, you know, we need more women in our higher judiciary. And one of the judges remarked that, you know, we always find it difficult to find competent women in leadership. And I knew that answer, so I said, you know, since we have a number of incompetent men out there, a few incompetent women will also be fine. Because he didn't like it at all. But the point is, it has to be part of a leadership effort. It has to be a very sustained effort. And diversity, and not just gender, but also other forms of diversity is so critical. We have just published our diversity report. I'll invite you to take a copy of that report, in which we have identified nearly 15 indicators of diversity in a university. The first element which you mentioned is also important because of the fact that, you know, it doesn't come naturally to university, in the sense that it has to become part of a policy level initiative that comes through leadership. In fact, nowadays, we have a policy within our university where even when we do conferences and seminars, the endeavor is it has to be, you know, 50-50. Because we all know, we go to conferences around the world, mostly it's 90 and sometimes even 100% men. So it's a very conscious effort one has to do, and it has to go beyond tokenism.
Could I ask you to comment as the sole representative of your gender?
I can only comment that I'm only here per chance because my vice-chancellor couldn't make it. So there wouldn't have been any woman here had he been here. But otherwise, you know, I am at a very senior position in my university, and I have been the only one for the last so many years taking all sorts of, working against all odds, you know, because of the gender bias and the woman at the top. It's very hard to digest. Nevertheless, this incumbent leadership is very pro-females. And you know, the interesting thing he did was that he made a female warden of a boys' hostel. So this was something, it came as a surprise to everyone in the university. The senior professors, the males that is, they were thinking that they will be counted for being the warden of a male hostel. But he surprised everyone by making her. So this is a change, this is a transition, this is transformation. When next vice-chancellor would come, the previous vice-chancellor has paved way for him or her to give importance to the females or have diverse things.
Hesham?
I will just give you a background of Khalifa University, 56% of our students, although we are engineering-based and STEM-based university, are female. Around 20% of our faculty are female. Many of the females are having leading positions in the university, managers, directors. The former provost of Mazda Institute was a female. So we are promoting female and empowering them, not only female, as well international students who are diverse in international university. We have around 88% of our faculty, students, 30% of our students are international, 80% of our faculty are international, coming from 47 countries. So in Khalifa University, it happens just me representing the university today.
I think from Times Higher Education's perspective, I think one thing that we'd love to explore is, as these awards, obviously this is the inaugural award, should we actually have a specific award for an equality initiative that's been highly successful, so at least we can incentivize good practice and share good practice.
I would like to, add here that when we were sending the entry for SDGs, the equality goal, SDG, we stood 201 in that. So which means that we are heading towards, gender equality and equal opportunity thing for everybody. And as far as, may I answer?
Yes, of course, I was conscious. We have only about 5 minutes. So
I'll just take 30 seconds or so. About transparency and risk factor, you spoke about that. You see, we have built-in systems where risk element and the transparency go side by side. Because we have statutory body and it has to go from various, bodies, and with external members, external stakeholders on the board, on the syndicate or on the Senate. So it makes it very transparent, especially the hiring, at the time of hiring. So there are tests, there are interviews, and screening, initial screening, initial scrutiny. So this transparency is there, and it is built in the system.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point about the rankings as a way of incentivizing. So I think we'll develop the awards to encourage more equality activity, but actually the impact rankings where we use the SDGs, we hold universities to account for literally the SDG that focuses on gender equality and the wider equality one. And we're not just looking at policies that promote that beyond the campus, we're actually looking at universities who are enacting good practice and actually showing it in the data.
That's true.
Sorry, very brief remarks. Bernard, do you want to go first and then we'll move down?
I want to answer your question directly about control, right? Now, control is bad for innovation, right? When we control by telling everybody what they can do, what they cannot do, of course, nobody innovates. And the important thing about innovation is, if as a university we want to facilitate innovation, first of all, internally, we must not impose unnecessarily control. We must unleash all our faculty members to exercise their creativity, to pursue innovative research, innovative teaching practices. And this means that when they make mistakes, it's not the end of the world. We learn from the mistakes, we emerge stronger, and we continue to innovate, right? Then beyond that, there's an external form of control. All of us who have run universities know that our governments like to control what we do, right? Whether or not they're supposed to. And sometimes they ask us, oh, we are quarreling with this country B. Why are you collaborating with the universities in country B? And to this, I want to say to all of us in this audience that now, it is the job of politicians to quarrel occasionally, but it is the job of academic institutions like us to collaborate all the time. So it is best that we leave the politicians to do their job while we do ours, and therefore we should collaborate. Thank you.
Very quickly, about question about gender balance. I think if coming from China, I think that's really an acute problem. I think we really need more university leaders, female leaders in Chinese universities. Now about the SUSTech, our top 2 leaders, 1 male, 1 female, but that's about it. This is the only member of our senior leadership team. So we need to promote more women as a senior leader.
Hamdy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, very quick one. We've been talking about leadership and management. And what I want to make a remark is that there is really no one-size-fits-all in leadership. And what we are talking about just now about leadership should be like this or like that, it very much dependent on the situation. So it's very situational in nature. And it depends, again, on the age of the university, on the mission of the university, then on the leadership style and criteria comes in. But one thing for sure that all leaders must have, in my opinion, is sincerity, which we have not been touching today. Sincere leader is extremely important. Clinging to power, for example, doesn't want to relinquish posts, is one of the problems in some of the universities in the country. Because wanting to be the leader as long as possible, knowing that even he or she doesn't have anything else to lead. So I think this is the elements which leader must possess, which is number one is the sincerity, knowing when to lead and knowing when to lead. And this leadership is not about the person. It's more about the institution. It's not about building, it's not about building capacity of the individual leader, but really it's about the institution that he's governing. So I think, again, if I may stress that sincerity in leadership is paramount in comparison to all other things that we have been discussing today. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're almost out, but would you like to make the final?
So I can answer her question. I consider gender issue is only a timing problem for Taiwan, because if you stay here longer, another shortlist regarding teaching, all the Taiwanese representatives are females over there.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly react to the transparency question. You know, the trust element in a leader is so important, because most of what people in universities do is based upon a sense of trust that is born out of a sense of legitimacy. So to that extent, transparency and trustworthiness is critical for people to elevate themselves to seek that degree of inspiration for advancing performance.
Thank you. Well, I think this session has actually given me a fantastic proof of concept, because we're actually dedicating an entire summit to the issues of leadership and management. We'll be in Hong Kong in July with a 2-day focus entirely on the challenges, the requirements, the opportunities, the skills requirements to lead universities. And I think the fact that we're still talking and we've run out of time is testament to so many issues that we've touched upon, and so many issues that actually I'd love to continue talking about. So we will, of course, continue to talk about it throughout the summit, and we'll be highlighting it as an entire subject matter for a summit in July. But all I want to say now is that I think you can see clearly that we have an outstanding group of managers and leaders. I hope we can all really learn from these experiences, that we have the poster exhibition. So all of the institutions involved in the awards have publicized and published their posters explaining their entries. And really, for me, this is just a great opportunity to network and learn from one another and share great practice. So a huge thank you to the panel, and enjoy the rest of today. But thank you very much indeed.